Welcome back to Professional Perspectives. I'm Praneeth Mori, joined by my co-host Arva Kella, and we're so glad to have you with us as we continue exploring the stories and journeys behind different careers for Season 4, Episode 3.
That's right, Praneeth. Today, we're stepping into the world of sports broadcasting, a field that blends preparation, passion, and the power to connect fans to the game in real time. Our guest today is Mr. Alex Cohen, a play-by-play broadcaster with over 15 years of experience in broadcasting, media relations, and sales in professional sports.
Alex is currently in his first full season with the Marquee Sports Network, the television home of the Chicago Cubs. Over his career, he's called more than 2,000 games over AAA baseball, Division I college programs, the World Baseball Softball Confederation, and even the Australian Baseball League. In 2023, he was named Ballpark Digest Broadcaster of the Year, a recognition of his storytelling, preparation, and on-air excellence.
Also, Mr. Alex Cohen is also represented by the United Talent Agency and was recently mentioned by Front Office Reports among some of the most talented broadcasters in the industry. His journey represents persistence, adaptability, and an enduring passion for sports. Mr. Alex Cohen, welcome to Professional Perspectives, and we're thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Of course, yeah. So to get us started, for the first question, could you just really briefly explain what your role is, like in a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So with Marquee Sports Network, not only am I a fill-in play-by-play broadcaster, so I probably call anywhere between 35 to 45 games when you include regular season and spring training, but I also work on the digital content side. So really jack of all trades when it comes to content, doing the daily podcast, doing digital content exclusive for the Marquee Sports Network app. I filled in on pregame and postgame shows, and done a show called Road to Wrigley, which is outlining the Cubs minor league system. So kind of doing everything from a content perspective, and then being the fill-in play-by-play broadcaster when Boog Shambi has his national assignments.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. Was there like a particular moment in your life or event that made you realize that this was the path you wanted to follow?
When I was 13, I think broadcasting the video games that my brothers and my uncles were playing, and they weren't letting me play, so I wanted to make my presence felt, and I would broadcast them. That's when I knew that I kind of love talking about sports. Did the sports broadcasting club, started it at my high school with two of my best friends, then went to college, worked in student radio for 4 years, worked for the newspaper for a couple years, got internships in minor league baseball, and then 13 years in minor league baseball until getting to the big leagues. So I would say it started when I was about 13. I'm now 37, so 24 years.
Wow, that's definitely a huge time range for being in that area and region. Uh, so I was wondering, for on like a personal based experience, do you remember the first game you ever called, and what was that experience for you like?
First game I ever called was my sophomore year of high school. We had started the sports broadcasting club in October, and we couldn't do any of the football games because at that point they were already like contracted to local networks. So we did powder puff football. My two best friends and I did powder puff football as our first broadcast, and it was so much fun. And then right after that, we did about 5 or 10 basketball games, and then moved into spring sports. I played baseball, so my buddies would broadcast baseball and lacrosse games. And then the next fall, we did football, which was my junior year, and then volleyball. So yeah, it started with powder puff football, and ended up matriculating into other things.
Yeah, and it seems like you had this journey and you shared this with some friends of yours. Who were some
Yeah.
of these broadcasters or even mentors that influenced your style and perspective early on?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So the two buddies who I started the sports broadcasting club with at Upper Dublin High School are still in the industry. So one of them is Josh Getzoff, who is the radio play-by-play broadcast, or should be the TV play-by-play broadcaster for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He had done it for 4 years on the radio. Now is in his third year in television. The other one is Steven Watson, who works for FanDuel Sports Network, is the pre and post game show host for the Milwaukee Brewers and the Milwaukee Bucks. So you have three guys coming out of a high school in suburban Philadelphia. One calls games for the Cubs, one calls games for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the other commentates and does a lot of stuff for games for the Milwaukee Brewers and the Milwaukee Bucks. So it's pretty cool.
That definitely is very cool. To see how you guys came like of the same friend group out of high school, kind of came in, and now you're in like these huge roles in the sports broadcasting industry in different leagues and big leagues. That's so cool, honestly. And so I was wondering, you've built a career that spans like decades in broadcasting, media relations, and sales. How have these roles complemented each other, and how do you think they helped each other to the role you're in right now?
It's all communication. It's all being able to resonate and communicate with people. If you are working in sales, you want them to be sold and buy a product that you're passionate about. If I'm broadcasting, I want the listeners to be bought and sold and really resonate with the product that I'm talking about. So it's all about communications, it's all about relatability.
Oh, yeah, and kinda, like, switching to another side of this aspect, how did working in media relations and sales give you a deeper understanding of the more business side of sports?
Well, I think with media relations, it's like it's not all about talking. Like you have to formulate the stories. You need to make sure that you're not just engrossed in like ball pitch strike or balls hit to the right center field gap. Like you need to know these players inside and out and where they came from and who they played with and the trials and the tribulations that they have faced early on in their career or their professional career. Like not everything is easy. Not everybody is a first round pick making $4 million as a signing bonuses in the big leagues 3 years later. Like you have to be able to find those storylines to be able to disseminate to the media about what's important and what's not, and what people care about and what they don't. So, yeah, I think from a media relations standpoint, it's just being able to find the proper context. And when it comes to sales, once again, it's just communication. It's just being able to resonate with somebody else and make sure you can get on like an even playing field with what you're talking about and something that they're receiving. So,
Yeah, and so I was also wondering, like, in terms of your career, right? You've called so many games. I
mhm.
was wondering, like, on a personal aspect, what keeps each one so exciting and each one unique for you?
Well, what keeps me so exciting is the games that I get to call now. I get to do it at Wrigley Field and in big league ballparks. So, when you spend 7, 8 years calling games in front of 400 people or 4,000 people, 40,000 people is the ultimate confidence boost. I mean, it's the ultimate adrenaline rush. It's the ultimate refresher. So, I think just being able to go to big league ballparks certainly helps. But what I try to do to keep it fresh each day is, I made a rule for myself about 5 years ago. When I come to the ballpark, I need to have one 10-minute conversation that is different than the last day, like one unique 10-minute conversation. It doesn't have to be with a player. It could be with a coach. It could be with a trainer. It could be with a bus driver. It could be with an usher. Just something to switch up the brain chemistry a little bit. So when you're calling a 2-1 game that turns into a 12-1 game, you have some context to kind of make it fresh and make sure that things don't go stale.
Yeah, I really like how, you kinda set that routine for yourself of having these conversations.
Mhm.
What does your typical game day routine actually do look like from start to finish?
Sure. Well, let's take for instance like a 6:30 Cubs game. I get to Wrigley Field around 1:30, which is like an hour before everybody else does, just to make sure that I have like my ducks in a row, know what the starting pitcher is. I won't know the lineup at that point, but just know my side stories, my context, make sure the themes that I want to include in the broadcast. Then I'll go down to media availability when they open up the clubhouse. That takes about an hour. Then I'll watch the coach's press conference, manager's press conference. Craig Counsell talks to the media. Then I'll go out to batting practice every game. I think it's really important to be seen and go down there and just see how the ball flies and how the guys interact. So I'm down there for an hour. Then you go upstairs, you fill out the rest of your book. That takes about an hour. Then you go eat dinner, maybe 15 minutes, go into the other team's radio booth, television booth, and make sure you can find out something about the other team, because remember, you don't see the other team every day. You see him for 3 games and the other guys see him for 6 months. So you go to the other booth, talk to those broadcasters, go back into our booth, record an open, then call a 3 hour game, then a short post game segment. And then I sit down, take a couple deep breaths, and I get to the ballpark at 1:30 for a 6:30 game. 3 hours later, after the game ends, it's probably 9:30. It's an 8 hour day.
Yeah, I feel like that's also contrary to common belief because normally, like, if you're thinking about broadcasting, you might just think that it's like a 1 3 hour session, but it's like a whole day and a
Yeah,
whole
it's a whole
routine that
day
goes
thing.
with it.
It's 9 hours, but it ain't 9 to 5. But it's
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
yeah, that's actually really cool to see. how the life of a broadcaster is. Uh, so I was wondering for people like many of our listeners, they're like in high school or in college, or they're like in their early stages of their career. Uh, so for them, if for them to relate with your career, I was wondering how was your transition like from a broadcaster for the Iowa Cubs to joining Marquee Sports Network with the Chicago Cubs?
I mean, still it's baseball. I mean, to that point, I had called 1,500, 1,600 baseball games. So, I had to remember that it's still the same sport. But it's a different type of broadcast just because you have a 40,000 person crowd in the background and you want them to speak loudly. And you have a sideline reporter, Taylor McGregor and Elise Medeker. You have color commentary like Jim DeShays, Joe Girardi, Cliff Floyd. In minor league baseball, you're a one man band, or maybe you have a color analyst, but the majority of the time, you are the analyst, you're the sideline reporter, you're the play by play broadcaster. You're Steph Curry. But in the big leagues, as a play by play broadcaster, you're more of a point guard. You want to make sure that Taylor McGregor can get her hits in. You got to make sure that Jim DeShays is in the spot where he can break down the action. You can stay silent so the players on the field or the crowd speaks the loudest. So I think a broadcaster in the big leagues, to put like a basketball perspective to it, you're like a point guard. You're like Mike Conley Jr. Like you get your 11 points, your 7 assists, your 5 rebounds, but you make sure that everybody else gets involved. And that's completely different than being a play-by-play broadcaster in minor league baseball.
Yeah, that's an absolutely amazing analogy. Like, I think I really fully understand what you're trying to
Good, I'm glad. It's awesome.
yeah. So one thing I did see is that you were named Ballpark Digest 2023 Broadcast of the Year. What did that recognition mean to you personally, and like how did that define your terms of success?
I mean, it was shocking. It wasn't something that I expected. It was definitely nice. It felt really good. People said really nice things about me. I got really nice messages. I'd be lying if I told you that it didn't feel great. It didn't put a smile on my face, but it didn't define my level of success. I mean, long before that, I was happy as I was as a broadcaster, but knew that it wasn't perfect. I was going to have to work. I still have to work. There's still days that I'm not good. There's still days that I'm really good. So trying to maintain that consistency. The good thing is I'll always be my biggest critic. So even though people can say the nicest things in the world about me, if I turn on that tape and I hear something that I don't like, I'm going to fix it. So it definitely was nice. I most certainly appreciated it. It doesn't determine how I am as a broadcaster. I'm still going to work really hard. I'm still going to call games. I'm still going to mess up, and I'm still going to try to fix those mess ups. So
Yeah, I can really tell the passion for your love for podcasting and your humbleness in the aspect of being able to acknowledge that that one achievement doesn't define your success in the field. Uh, so I've wondered, how do you approach your on-air chemistry when working with different broadcast partners? And could you just explain the situation? Is it because earlier you were saying it's just an individual thing in the smaller leagues. How does
yeah.
it work in the major leagues, and how does the collaboration aspect look like?
Well, first in the major leagues, you always have a color commentator, and that color commentator, 99.9% of the time, is a former athlete, whether they are a former big league baseball player, college softball player, professional softball player. They're the pro, they're the player, and you are the broadcaster. So I think it's really important, especially during big league broadcasts, to include your analyst, just because they've been in those situations, they've been in those locker rooms, they've been in the dugout much more than you have. They have a more of an intimate relationship with what's going on in that field and that clubhouse, and what pennant races mean to a clubhouse, what the trade deadline means to a clubhouse, what injuries mean to a clubhouse, what a bench clearing brawl means to the clubhouse than I do. So as a play-by-play broadcaster, I have to put them in the spot where they can tell that story because it's not my story to tell.
Yeah, and it sounds like you collaborate with a lot of like you already yourself have so much experience, but you do collaborate with these higher experienced individuals, and that's really interesting to see. Something that comes with this much experience too is that you were able to go to these games internationally, like Japan, Mexico, and Colombia. What was it
Yeah,
like broadcasting baseball on the global stage?
incredible. I mean, I'm a big traveler to begin with. I studied abroad in college. And anytime that I get to travel to different places, see different cultures, meet different fans, and be able to get paid to do it is a bonus for me. Being able to call games in Mexico, Colombia, Australia, Taiwan, Japan, all of them are completely different. And I think being able to experience baseball in those different ballparks and in those different cultures like gives you such a broader knowledge of the game and how important it is to people in the world.
Yeah, and you just touched on this a bit when you were saying about the differences in the atmospheres. How would you say the audiences and atmospheres differ when you're broadcasting internationally, like the countries you just described, compared to here in the USA?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely different. Let's take, for instance, the first pitch of the 2025 season. It's Cubs versus Dodgers. It's Shohei Ohtani versus Shota Imanaga. And I have a feeling if that were in the United States, like people would be going nuts, bonkers, standing up, cheering. And in Japan, it was completely silent. Like you could hear a pin drop. But that was their way of respecting the moment, of letting the moment be the players and them just being witnesses to what was going on. So, in an environment that would be so raucous in the big leagues, it was so calm in Japan. And just recognizing what they view as respect and their traditions, it was something that I learned, and it's something that you recognize that watching baseball in the United States, Major League Baseball, like it's a big deal, but it's not the only deal. That's not the only way how to consume baseball.
Yeah, and including these kind of moments where like you realize this. What was the, like one of the most memorable game or call of your career so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think calling game one, pitch one of 2025 in Japan at the Tokyo Dome with Shota and Shohei was a pretty big deal. Getting to call a walk off at Wrigley Field, got to call two of them this year. That's pretty neat. Getting to call a no hitter at Wrigley Field in 2024, Cubs Pirates. That's definitely up on my list. So yeah, I would say all of them happening in the last year. Aside from that, calling the 2019 Premier 12 final for the World Baseball Softball Confederation, Japan against Korea, and just recognizing the atmosphere at the Tokyo Dome, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Uh, so I really liked earlier where you said 2 questions ago about um, how you said the people in Japan, they were watching the game as just spectators of
Yeah,
what was happening. And I thought that was actually a really cool, interesting perspective for you to lay out. And then I was also thinking that it's so surreal. Your voice is probably heard by thousands and thousands of people, and it's really cool for you to be here on our podcast. I just wanted to acknowledge that. So thank you for that. And uh, the question I wanted to go off of from what Praneeth said is there's like a lot of games where there's big audiences and it's very memorable, but it can also be very stressful and have a lot of pressure. So how do you handle mistakes or unexpected pressures in moments live on air?
mistakes happen. Just recognizing those mistakes and making sure that I don't make them again, being accountable for them, taking a deep breath. There's still half innings that I really struggle and I miss certain details and I miss sitting calls and I misspeak, and it's the third out. You get to a break, and you have to acknowledge that, and just make sure that you know what, bottom of the fifth really stunk. Let's make the top of the sixth a little bit better. And if you can recognize that as a little bit better, let's make it the bottom of the sixth a little bit better than that, and then just start building the blocks up once again. So don't deny it. Stare it right in the face. Don't waste too much time on it. Take a couple deep breaths and self encourage yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's also like really great advice, not just in broadcasting, but also just in careers and in life in general. So, yeah. In your view, what separates a good broadcaster from a great one, like including this kind of mentality?
Yeah, relatability. Me personally, I mean, this is one man's opinion, one person's opinion, but I want a broadcaster who I feel like once they get off air with me, they're going to come into my living room. We're going to have a beer and talk about the game. I want somebody who loves the game, loves to talk ball, loves to immerse the fans in what's going on, whether that is their style is teaching, whether their style is telling stories, or their style is just chatting ball. I think relatability is exceptionally important, and I think that's what separates the mediocres from the goods and the goods from the greats.
Yeah, I feel like that's also a really interesting perspective. Especially the concept of relatability. I feel like that is kind of um, specific to the sports broadcasting field, and that concept of having to be relatable might not translate to a lot of fields. So that's actually very cool. And I was wondering, since you've joined the industry in itself, the sports
Sure.
broadcasting industry, how would you say it changed both in terms of like technicality, but like also in terms of like the creativity and the production aspect?
Everything. Everything. What we're doing right now was not around when I was your age or graduating college. Um, when you are younger now, when you're in high school, when you're in college, there are so many more avenues to get into sports media. Let's just take student broadcasting. Big Ten as Big Ten Student U. Well, they didn't have that when I was in college. I got on like my senior year, and they got it started with wrestling. And I got to do a wrestling match. It was great. But there's just so many more avenues where students can go out there and find their voice, whether that is calling games, recording podcasts, or buying a broadcast headset and a microphone and a mixer and plugging it into your computer and downloading Audacity, and there's your broadcast studio. We didn't have that. So I think just so many different ways, whether it is recorded or not, or on a publication or on a website or for a team, to get your voice and to find your voice.
Yeah, and kind of like bouncing off of that, how did you find your voice back in the day, like without all these technologies or
Back in the day, man, it took a thousand games for me to find my voice. And it came from trial and error and having some really bad games and having really good games, calling games, being in the clubhouse, talking to people, listening to people, sending my tapes out to people and having them pick it apart. Tell me I'm good. Tell me I'm bad. This works. This doesn't. All of that. And then just like growing as a person, growing as an adult, being comfortable in my own skin, being comfortable with my voice. But it took till I was 30. It took me 1,000 games. And I remember like I strung together a couple games with Iowa. I think it was back in 2019. I was like, all right, like I can listen back to this and it won't sound like nails on a chalkboard. Like that was like my first litmus test to, all right, like I'm comfortable with my own voice, or I'm getting more comfortable with my own voice.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I was just wondering, did you say you sent your own tapes?
Oh yeah, I would record an inning and I would send it out to anybody who would listen. So yeah, I remember like I would get critiques from Scott Fransky with the Phillies and Boog Shambi with the Cubs and Joe Davis with the Dodgers and Wayne Randazzo, who's now with the Angels. I mean, I still have Joe Block with the Pirates. Like I still have those critiques. I still look at them. Won't call it routinely, but I still have them where I look back, and if I need some humbling or I need some other perspectives, like I'll go back in the email drive and look at them.
Awesome. Yeah, that's actually really cool to hear. And I was wondering, throughout your career, how would you say you always stay motivated and continue to have a need and want to improve your craft?
I'm my own biggest critic. So I listen back, and for everybody who says like, "Oh, your inning's good, your game is good," like I'm gonna find the thing that I don't like. I don't completely focus on that. Like I think I'm realistic. I think there's some things that I do well. I think there's some things that I struggle at. There's some things that I can get better at. There's some things that I have gotten better at. But just knowing that like I'm not a complete broadcaster at this point. Like I'm not the number one voice for a big league team. I'm not calling 162 games. I'm not calling the World Series. I'm not a Ford Frick Hall of Fame award winner. So there's stuff that I need to work on. So that definitely keeps me fresh. And now I'm at a different phase of my life. Like I'm married. I live in Chicago. It's the third biggest sports market in the country, and just making sure that I can put down roots there and stay there, for my family. So that's definitely a motivator as well.
Yeah, and real fast, a quick thing that you did mention in a previous answer was that this environment is changing really, really rapidly. How do you continue
Mhm.
to grow your network and stay connected within such a competitive and growing industry?
Being able to talk to people. Yeah, I mean, I just want to try to get better. To being able to talk to guys like you, meeting new people, and just knowing that like the people who I've come to know over the last 15 years aren't going to be the same people in the industry 15 years from now. So I think just even networking at my age is important. Getting to know new people is important. Getting to have different conversations is important.
Yeah, and I feel like I also definitely agree with that idea of always keep connecting, always keep growing, and always trying to keep increasing your network and also just meeting new people and understanding more about others. So this is a prediction that I would like to ask you. With the rise of streaming, social media, and short form content, and so much like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts, how do
Sure.
you see the future of sports broadcasting evolving maybe in the next like 5 to 15 years?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more digital. I mean, even now, like when I sit down in bed, like that's the way that I consume highlights. Whether it's on Instagram or it's on X. I'm not really as much of a TikToker. My wife is. Um, but that is a complete shift in 10 years ago where I would turn on ESPN and watch Sports Center or go online, ESPN.com. So even that is such a drastic shift on how I consume sports on a day to day basis. So I can only imagine that it's going to shift more towards that end because it's more sustainable, it's cheaper, and it's one that more people, in this demographic of who's going to grow sports, that's how they're consuming sports.
Yeah, and that's really important to, I feel like, have that understanding that this industry is changing and just to be able to adapt with that really well. One thing,
You don't really have a choice.
yeah, exactly. Like if you stay rigid, then you won't be able to, move with the whole industry.
For sure.
And one thing like kind of relating off of that is what skills do you believe that these future broadcasters will need that maybe weren't as essential 10 years ago and that they'll need to develop to stay within these times?
That's a really good question. I think it's really important for people now to be clear and concise with what they're talking about. So essentially, like getting to the point. Because if you're beating around the bush, there's so many other people out there that deliver their content in a manner that they're comfortable with, in a way that people can consume. So if somebody flips on your podcast and you're talking about broadcasting and you don't get to broadcasting until the fifth or sixth minute, they're going to go find it somewhere else. So I think it's just messaging and making sure that you deliver the point the way that you want to deliver it, what point that you're trying to deliver, and do it in a clear and concise manner.
Yeah, I feel like that's also really good advice and really good advice for both high schoolers and people interested in the broadcasting field. And now for a fun and I would say kind of like unorthodox question. My question for you is if you could call any historic sports moment from the past, which one would it be and how do you imagine you would have approached it?
So I'm going to have two answers here.
Sure.
One, like past sports moment, any clinching World Baseball Classic, because I would want to figure out how to nail a call on like an individual game standpoint and also on like a global standpoint because a WBC championship for the US is so much different than a WBC championship in Japan or Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic. So making sure you can hit the right note from that global perspective, like it just adds a completely different layer to it. So I would say the game clinching call from any World Baseball Classic, and the one what I want to do, I want to call Olympics. I want to call the Olympics. Like that is my main goal. I would love to call a World Series. I would love to be a full time voice for a big league team. Like those are goals as well. Uh, but I've been calling international baseball since 2015, and to be able to call it at like that level when people really care, yeah, I think the Olympics would be like my one of one.
Yeah, it does sound amazing. Be able to like speak and like call on this like huge global scale. Like you've already been to Japan and worldwide, but to do this huge audience, that would truly be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we did had an episode recently with I think with a like camera specialist. How do
sure.
you work with these people too? As in, like you've already discussed how you work with other people on your team, as in with the broadcasting and calling.
It's a really important relationship, and it's one that it should be pretty one sided. They tell you what to do, they tell you what they're doing, and you listen and you call what they're showing. So they have an idea. You listen to your director, your producer, the camera people, the stat people saying, this is what we're showing. This is the element that we're putting at the bottom of a screen. This is the fan that we're showing. And your job is to talk about it and talk about it appropriately. So there are some broadcaster, director, cameraman relationships where the play by play guy dictates what they're seeing and what they're doing. I just don't think that I'm at that point yet. I trust the directors. I trust my coworkers, and it might just be a function of the great people that I work with at Marquee Sports Network. They've been doing it for decades, and I trust that they know how to put on a show the best way possible. So if they're going to show a guy in a banana costume in the third deck, I'm going to talk about it. If they're going to show a fan just crushing tacos, I'm going to talk about it. If they're going to show Shohei Otani's family in the third row of the Tokyo Dome, I'm going to talk about it. So they're always in your ear. And the thing about big league broadcasts, like you have the headphones on and your director has a line to you, your producer has a line to you, your statistician has a line to you, your cameraman has a line to you. So making sure that you trust them.
Yeah, and your answer that you just said about if they're going to show a camera, the cameraman, if they're going to show someone eating tacos or like the family member of a baseball player, that you would talk on that. I feel like that also goes really hand in hand with your answer about relatability and been building a connection with the audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought that was actually really cool. So now I have two more questions.
Yep.
The first one is, what's a lesson from broadcasting that you have carried over into your life outside of sports? And the second one is there a specific call from an other broadcaster that you consider a source of inspiration?
The advice that I get, and this pertains to going into a broadcast and in life, it sounds really cliche and it's kind of simple. Smile. Smile. If you're not having fun broadcasting the game, then the watcher and the listener, odds are, probably not going to have a fun time listening to you. They're probably not going to enjoy it. It's not very often that, like, I'm pissed off calling a game and somebody listening is like, oh, I love that. That was great. Made me smile. Like, it has to be synced up. If you're happy, they're happy. So I think that from a broadcast standpoint, and I think in general that helps with my mood, how I perceive life, how I perceive stuff with my family, job stuff, moving stuff. If you can like prop a smile up, even if it's fake, it's gonna change things, whether that's 10% or 100%. So I think just smiling. And then what was your second question? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. I really like your advice about smiling too. The second question is, wait a second. Is there a specific call from another broadcaster that you consider a source of inspiration?
I think the answer is like a lot and none at the same time. Like I can go back and listen to certain calls that like resonate with me. Like Joe Buck calling when the Cubs won the 2016 World Series. I think obviously the Pat Hughes call as well. Just kind of matching the moment. For me, I think back to a call when the Harry Callis made when the Philadelphia Phillies won the 2008 World Series and ended the Phillies drought. It's not stuff that like I put on like a top of a pedestal. That's like I need to match that moment. But those are certain calls that I think back that most certainly resonated with me.
Yeah, and a really important thing that I think you touched on was, managing your emotions in like the first question, as baseball is full of emotional swings, and it sounds like you're a fan of baseball too. So how do you manage your own excitement and your own disappointment during these huge moments and make sure to stay composed on air?
I usually always have a baseball in my hand, like a baseball or something. So if I sense like the moment getting too big, I'll squeeze the baseball to sort of like neutralize the playing field. I mean, I won't lie to you. I mean, there's sometimes that in between innings, like I'll go back into the bathroom and like throw cold water on my face just to like get into survival mode, like get back to an even playing field. So, and also just like making sure that the moment. Like, yeah, I'll put this into the air. Like 2024 September, Cubs are playing the Pirates. Cubs have a combined no hitter going. Really cool moment for a broadcaster, people there. But what helped me was remembering it's like, all right, it's September. Cubs probably aren't going to make the playoffs. Pirates definitely aren't going to make the playoffs. It's a combined no hitter that had 2 hits that were on the board, then taken off the board because of errors and scoring changes. Like a no hitter is really cool, but try to put it into the right context. It's not a no hitter with the playoffs on the line. It's not a no hitter in the playoffs, game 7, nothing like that. So just trying to stay even keeled what the moment actually is.
Yeah, definitely. And as we slowly start to wrap up, our last 4 questions are going to be mainly related, advice related, as our audience is high school, college, and people in early stages of their careers. So it would
Sure.
be amazing if you could kind of target your advice for those age groups.
Yeah.
So for the first question, for young people who might not have access to major opportunities or internships, what are some practical ways they can gain real life experience and develop their own voice?
Yep, I said it a little bit earlier. Make a small investment in your career, and a small investment, like you have to save up for it. I would say save $350 to $400 because that will buy you a broadcast headset, that will buy you a 2 input mixer, that will plug into your computer. Download Audacity or GarageBand; those are free audio recording templates, and just like that, you have a broadcast studio. You can record something, you could save it as an MP4, and you could send it to any person that you want. So make a small investment into your future and get experience. Get that mixer, get that headset. You want to be a podcaster? Record yourself for 2 hours talking about a football game, or wrap up a Sunday in NFL action, or wrap up Game 6 of the World Series. Because you have that. You could save it as an MP4 and send it to the director of broadcasting from Fox and say, hey, I just recorded this. Let me know what you think. And easily send it to them. So invest in your own broadcast studio. It's an investment. It's going to take a lot of money to do. But if you can do that, you will have your own broadcast studio and you can get as much experience as you possibly want.
Yeah, I really, really like the advice that you gave, and especially how the way you said it, like send it to the director of Fox Media, and the way you kind of said it in an underwhelming tone, I feel like accurately represents how easy it is to create opportunities for yourself, and I feel like that is going to be very helpful advice.
Yep.
Okay, amazing. And what is a common early mistake that you see aspiring broadcasters make, and how can they avoid it?
I think it's like getting too high too early. I think that and what I used to do, let's say it's a 4-1 game in the 5th inning. It's June. Your team has lost 5 straight. Your best player is up. He hits a 2-run home run to make it a 4-3 game. And you're calling it like it's game 7 of the World Series. PCA hits it to deep right field. It is gone. Fireworks off. Legends were made. Well, what happens if he then hits a home run in the 9th inning? How do you top that? What happens when the team is in contention and you have a game winning play? So you don't want to go too high too early because there's always going to be a bigger moment. Maybe, I mean, game 7 of the World Series, maybe not, but definitely a bigger moment than the 5th inning of a June baseball game at Victory Field between the Iowa Cubs and the Indians. So making sure that you give the moment excitement, but it's proper due.
Yeah, I actually feel like that's really good advice, and also this was interesting to see from like an audience side perspective. Because me personally, like when I watch basketball, when the broadcasters when they get like really excited in the second quarter, I'm like, oh my god, what's going on? I
Yeah.
feel like the way you said it accurately represents like their side of the story, and that's actually so cool. And the next advice question is: how should students approach building a demo reel or portfolio when they're getting started and may not have like many games or like recordings under their belt?
I think it's a mindset. I think it's just remembering. Obviously, you call a baseball game, right? And you want that entire baseball game to be great. But really, to make a demo, all you need is 1 good 1/2 inning and 5 good highlights. That's it. So I would love my 150 game Iowa Cubs season to be demo worthy, the best. But just having the mindset that all I need from this is to have a minute and a half of good highlights, is to have 1 good pregame interview, and to have 2 good half innings. So 1 good full inning, 150 games times 9 innings, 1,315 innings, 50 innings. You need 1 of 1,350. You need less than 1% of your stuff to be good. So just recognizing that not everything has to be perfect. But if you can get a play or 2, a stretch or 2, where you sound good, you sound confident, that's all you need.
Perfect. And finally, wrapping it up, what's the most valuable piece of advice you received early in your career that you wish more young broadcasters could hear?
And it's mentality, it's smile. It's smile, man. Like, you're calling baseball for a living. You don't want to smile? Go work in a cubicle and make a lot more money and spend time with your family and not smile. Like, you're here to make other people enjoy the baseball experience or resonate with the baseball experience. And as I said earlier, if you're not smiling, if you're not happy calling the game, they're not going to be happy listening to it. There's very few opportunities where I call a game and I'm not happy and I'm pissed off at what's happening at home. And somebody listening is like, oh man, I really loved your energy. Like, my energy is going to be synced up with their energy. If I'm happy, they're happy. If I'm pissed, they're pissed. So smile. Make sure you're happy. If you're not, do something else.
I feel like that advice about just smiling, being happy, appreciating the moment, and not being in the past or future is so true to every aspect of life, not just work or careers or like school, but just like always, just be happy, keep smiling, and it'll all be great.
Of
And
course.
I feel like that's an amazing transition to end it off. I just want to say, Mr. Cohen, thank you so much for your time, your answer, and your wisdoms. I feel like this will definitely help kids, high schoolers and college kids wanting to go into the sports broadcasting field and kind of understand if it's good for them. So thank you so much for your answers and time.
I appreciate it. What you guys are doing is great, especially at your young age, talking to people. Keep that on. Like, this is fun. We're talking sports. So keep on talking to people, keep on learning, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with you guys.
Mr. Cohen, thank you so much for taking us through your incredible journey, from calling games across the globe to joining Marquee Sports Network with the Cubs. It's inspiring to see how much preparation, storytelling, and dedication goes into what you do.
Absolutely. What really stood out to me is how your experiences, from international broadcasts to your time in AAA, have shaped your voice and perspective behind the mic. Your story shows how persistence and passion can open doors at every level.
To our listeners, if you've ever dreamed about sharing stories through sports or calling the next big moment in a major league, Mr. Cohen's career is proof that hard work, consistency, and adaptability can take you a very long way.
Be sure to subscribe to Professional Perspectives so you don't miss future episodes. And leave us a review if you've been enjoying the show. We'll be back soon with another guest and another inspiring career story.
And until next time, keep discovering your potential and let your passion guide your professional perspectives.